All right, good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war summary. And today we have breaking news on multiple fronts. First off, we've learned that Igor Girkin has been arrested, which is a very prominent arrest, and Girkin has been very outspoken against the Russian government. We've also learned that apparently the Wagner fighters inside of Belarus are posing a very credible threat to Poland, and now Poland is becoming very concerned about them potentially attacking their country, and we do have some more evidence about that. We've also learned more information about the grain deal, so let's go ahead and jump right into our first piece of news, which is from Fytux. It says, breaking, Igor Girkin has been detained and charged under Article 282 for extremism of Russia's criminal law, and that was reported by his wife as well as Russian Telegram channels. And we can see here's a Telegram post explaining that as well. So this is very big news. Girkin has been flying basically under the radar from Russia's basically propaganda machine for quite some time now, and Girkin has spoken out against Putin on multiple occasions and made very, very disparaging remarks about Putin's government, and it's surprising that it took this long for him to get arrested. Putin, as we know, does not take kindly to people speaking out against his government, and Girkin has been one of the most prominent people to do so outside of Prigozhin and his coup attempt. So now we see Russia taking preemptive action against Girkin to prevent him from doing something. Now, the timing is a little bit weird on this one. I'm not sure exactly why the Russians decided to arrest him now. I'm not sure if maybe Girkin was planning on saying something or doing something that might have harmed Putin in a very, very extensive degree. But we do know that Girkin has been arrested now and he's in Russian custody. And moving on to our next article here, we have a post from Clash Report which says the first shots of the detained Igor Girkin from the hall of the court of Moscow. So we do see here in this video that Girkin is in the defendant's cage inside of a court in Moscow, and he looks very, very concerned, and understandably so, because when you get taken into custody by the Russians, a lot of bad things can happen outside of simply being jailed. And considering this guy is a very staunch opponent of Putin's, this guy could be in some serious trouble outside of obviously the official court processes. He could be in danger for his life. So obviously here, a big story about Girkin being in the court. And also, we do know that while he was in the court, Girkin requested to be put on house arrest instead of being taken to jail. And we learn here in this next post from OSINT Defender that an empty police van arrived outside of the District Court of Moscow, indicating that the judge has decided not to allow Girkin to remain at his apartment on house arrest. So, also another big piece of news, and it suggests that Putin is out for blood on Girkin, and he's not going to give him a break, and he will be going to jail to basically silence him and prevent him from doing or saying anything else about Putin's government. So, Girkin is in deep trouble, and it'll be interesting to watch the story to see what happens. So, switching gears to our next story of the day, it is about Poland. It says Poland will move military assets to the east of the country amid possible threats from the Wagner Group, now based in Belarus, reports Reuters. And Poland has been making a big deal about the Wagner being inside of Belarus for many weeks now. And we had generally written that off as fear-mongering by Poland. We figured that maybe Poland was overreacting. Maybe they were simply upset that the Wagner was now on their border. But it appears we're getting more evidence now that Poland's fears might be well validated because the Wagner are doing some very disturbing things inside of Belarus that we hadn't known previously. So with that being said, moving on to our next post here, it is from the Kyiv Post. And it's about Putin responding to Poland's fears about the Wagner in Belarus. And here we can see that Putin said Poland has forgotten that the Polish Western territories were a gift from Stalin, but Russia will remind it. And that is a pretty clear threat by Putin that he might be planning to do something against Poland because they're now concerned that the Wagner are on their border. Also, his other statements today at the Russian Security Council meeting were Poland seized part of Lithuania and took away its historical lands from Russia, took advantage of the Civil War, and participated in the division of Czechoslovakia. So, once again, another statement here that he is not friends with Poland and very upset with them. Putin also goes on to spread some propaganda here. He says the West plans to send Polish and Lithuanian fighters for meat in Ukraine. Obviously, there's no evidence of that. That is Russian propaganda. He also said that Poland leaders seek to set up a coalition under the NATO umbrella and intervene in the conflict in Ukraine. Also, another piece of propaganda. No evidence for that whatsoever. And finally, we see here that aggression against Belarus will mean aggression against Russia. And this is actually a factual statement on Putin's part. I imagine that Putin would take it as aggression against Russia if somebody were to do something to Belarus, because Belarus is obviously Putin's puppet. But one thing we do know is NATO never goes in and attacks first, especially in a situation like this, and there is no chance that NATO is going to go into Belarus and attack it without Russia doing something first to provoke it. So that, in my opinion, is also just more fear-mongering for the Russian population's benefit, and I doubt that's going to go anywhere at all. So once again, we see Putin here making threats against a NATO country and threatening to remind them that something happened in the past that he's not very happy about. So, moving on to our next piece of news here, we see that Germany is taking the threat very seriously from Russia and also Wagner inside of Belarus, and they have pledged to support Poland in defending its eastern flank in case of an attack from Wagner fighters in the neighboring country of Belarus, like I said. And this was in response to a question about the Wagner Group's presence in Belarus and the prospect of an attack along Poland's border. So, obviously, we see Germany taking this threat very seriously, and for them to be pledging support to Poland, it indicates that Germany might have some intelligence suggesting that Russia may be attempting to do something, which is very concerning. And with Putin making those threats toward Poland and also claiming that that's actually a gift from Stalin and actually Russia's territory, suggests that Putin might have bigger ambitions than just Ukraine and might be moving on from there in the future. But we'll have to watch and see. Next up, we see here that the Pentagon says that Wagner mercenaries in Belarus are being reintegrated into the Russian military, and Wagner Group mercenaries stationed in Belarus are being reassimilated to the Russian military, said the Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh on July 20th. And once again, another piece of evidence proving that the Wagner mercenaries inside of Belarus might be actually under the control of Putin at this point instead of Prigozhin. I'm sure Prigozhin still has some pull over these Wagner fighters, but if it is true that they are being reintegrated into the Russian military, those will actually be reconsidered and reclassified as Russian troops inside of Belarus, and that buildup would look very concerning. But right now, we're under the impression it's Wagner mercenaries there. So we'll have to see exactly who claims control over these troops, because if they're Russian, that would add credibility to Poland's fears that something might be coming in the future on their border. So let's switch gears a little bit. We're moving on to the grain deal news. We received some pretty big news about that as well. And this is a post from us. It says Russia's deputy foreign minister said the option of having Turkey escort grain ships through the Black Sea is not a viable alternative to the collapse of the grain deal. So here we see Russia responding directly to Turkey about their offer to escort the grain ships through the Black Sea and basically threatening them and telling them that would not be a smart thing to do, or we're going to take action against you for it. So obviously pretty bold words by Russia, and we'll have to see if Russia actually follows through on their threat. And that actually brings us to our next news story here, which is also from us. It says here that Erdogan says that Turkey will not hesitate to take action to prevent harmful effects of the grain deal suspension, and this was in response to Putin's recent warning to Turkey that it will not allow the escort of Ukrainian grain ships. And obviously, very strong words in response from Erdogan about Putin's threats, saying that he will not hesitate, meaning he's not going to wait whatsoever before taking action to make sure those ships make it to and from Ukraine safely and not interfered with by Russia. I was waiting to see if Turkey was going to fulfill this promise, and right now it looks like Erdogan isn't backing down, and he might actually follow through with it, which would be a big event. We might see some conflict arise between Turkey and Russia, and obviously we already know about the one potentially brewing between Poland and Russia. So right now, two NATO countries are being threatened by Russia, and obviously that's not a good thing at the same time, and we'll have to wait and see if Russia accidentally makes a mistake or makes a very aggressive move toward either one of these NATO countries that causes a confrontation to take place. Very concerning news. But moving on here, we have some more news about the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Obviously, we had a big scare about that a while back, which turned out not to have much credibility to it, but we do learn now that apparently the Russians are messing around with the plant once again. And it says here the Russians are trying to force Ukrainian staff at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to launch power unit number 4. And from my understanding, it looks like the Russians are trying to force reactor number 4 into a hot shutdown mode. I'm not exactly sure what that could entail, and we have very little information about that at the moment, so I can't really even speculate about why the Russians would be doing this. It could be trying to perform another false flag attempt. It could be that the Russians are trying to simply operate the plant normally. I'm not really sure, but we'll have to keep an eye on it because obviously the Russians have made concerning statements about the power plant in the past, and they could be planning to do something. So we'll have to wait and see. And finally, we have a last piece of news from Ukrainska Pravda in English. It says Russia threatens to bomb German Rheinmetall AG plant if it is built in Ukraine. And we did learn a short while ago that the German company Rheinmetall, which manufactures weaponry that is being used in the Ukrainian war and also by Germany, they want to build a plant directly in the middle of the war zone to be able to supply the weaponry faster. seems like a little bit of a strange decision to me because it seems like it would be a credible target for Russia to bomb. And I'm not very clear if bombing the plant after it's built would provoke a response between Germany and Russia, but very concerning statements. And once again, more aggression by Russia toward another NATO country, which is Germany. So, big news happening today. Today's a pretty big day for breaking news, and obviously we'll be covering these stories very closely. And for now, that is our last piece of news. But it is still in the morning for us, and there's already plenty of news coming out. So today could be a very eventful day, and obviously we'll cover all these events occurring from now until our stream tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our stream. So if you want to learn more about it, be sure to join us then. Also, if you would, put a like and subscribe on the video and our channel as well, so that way you can get updated regularly. Also, if you want to get the news as fast as possible, we do post this as it happens on our Twitter page, and our Twitter handle is @It'sTheEnforcer. Go follow us over there for the news as it happens. And also, if you would, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description below to support our work and keep us covering this war. So, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been informative, and we'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye for now.